Hello, my name is Max Strom, and welcome to my breathing DVD. The fact that you've purchased this DVD and you've put it in your player tells me that you're in an expansive state of consciousness. It tells me that you understand that your breath is more than for survival, more than for bringing in oxygen and expelling CO2. That our breath and our emotions are connected, that our breathing and our mind are connected. When a woman goes into labor and once again goes into pain and emotional trauma, the first thing that she relies on is her breath. In fact, now, of course, we all know there are breathing classes for childbirth. And when we feel strong emotions, we know that our breath is also affected. A person's body posture changes. When we're excited, when we're inspired, filled with breath, we lift up, and when we get bad news, we collapse. That's why there's all the songs of, she broke my heart, he stabbed me in the back. All these metaphors of being attacked in here, and this is where we feel it. And when we feel these things, our breath is so deeply affected. And because these feelings affect our breath, we can change our breath to change our feelings. Just like if you ever have gotten body work, you can be in a bad mood, your muscles can feel like rock. Someone comes up behind you and massages your muscles, and not only the muscles feel better, but you feel better. Your entire state changes. And similarly, the breath, by changing it, by breathing the way we do when we're happy, when we're inspired, ricochets to the body and affects the way we feel. It's as above, so below. Because the breathing practices calm the mind, body, and emotions, it calms the entire nervous system. And when this happens, it changes our behavior. And when this happens, it improves our relationships, how we interrelate to people. And in this way, it helps to heal our lives. People subconsciously often feel that healing is selfish, when in fact the inverse is true. To heal ourselves emotionally is our duty, our obligation to those that we love and those that love us. There's no greater gift we can give them. We affect people, and as I'll say many times, we can affect people or infect people. Let's affect people by breathing deeply. We all know that we experience our emotions in our body, but also the body actually contains and stores emotions. Most people never stop to think about, why is it when I feel grief or deep sorrow, my lungs go into convulsions? In other words, I'm in a perfectly good mood, and then I get bad news, and my lungs convulse. And I go concave, and I start to weep. We all recognize this. It's spasming of the lungs. We call it sobbing, and it's perfectly acceptable behavior, but we have no idea why we do it. According to Chinese medicine, grief and inspiration are stored in the lungs, not just figuratively, but literally. This is why when we feel grief, our lungs get involved. If you do store grief for decades, it can make you ill, sometimes very ill. So it's our obligation, not only for our own health, but for the health of our family, to get the old grief out. By getting old grief out, we help to heal ourselves. We tend to be less reactive, and we tend to be kinder. If we want to store it as if we're going to need it for later, it just makes us more and more reactive. We can be set off easily. The breathing practices help to cleanse the lungs of all this old grief that we all have, and by doing so, allows us the opportunity for new inspiration. For those of you who practice yoga, the asanas, the postures are very important, but the breathing is even more important. Unfortunately, most people tend to force and compete with the postures and to ignore the breathing. Now, you can practice for years trying to get your foot behind your head, and you may never get it there, not in this entire lifetime. Or maybe it'll take you 7 or 8 years. You'll go home and you'll say, look, honey, I can put my foot behind my head. And you'll get a stare back like this. And then they're on to the next thing. And you'll say, wait a second, it took me 7 years to get my foot behind my head. And they might look back at you and say, yes, but you're still mean to me. So the behavior hasn't changed after 7 years of forcing your foot behind your head. Whereas breathing, you can become a very good breathing practitioner in 1 to 2 years. And the impact of the breathing practice will change your behavior, how you behave with your loved ones, and how you react to them. In ancient times, many cultures associated breath and spirit, or breath and soul, as the same thing. In fact, if you look at many of the ancient languages, the word for soul and for breath was exactly the same word. In ancient Greek, the word pneuma meant spirit, it also meant breath. And there are many other examples. For instance, in Hawaii, the word aloha, which means, as we all know, hello, goodbye, used to mean much more. It came from the word iloha, ilo meaning the bosom of the world or God, and ha meaning the breath, meaning I greet you because we breathe the breath of God together. So for those of you on a spiritual path, when you do these breathing practices, however you perceive God, you can imagine this force entering you as you inhale. Many of us, especially those of us who live in large cities, are stressed out of our minds. Maybe why you're watching this DVD. Our nervous systems are overamped in a way. What are some of the symptoms of an overamped nervous system? Depression, rage, anxiety, tight jaw, sleeplessness, or insomnia. What are some of the causes of these problems? Well, for one, coffee. The coffee nation is lying awake at night staring at the ceiling. Now, I'm not speaking against coffee, it's fine. But if you're lying awake at night, you might want to reconsider. Or if you're reacting a little too strongly to those around you, you may want to cut back or stop altogether. Another problem is watching the news. Almost all the news on TV is bad news. And we can get addicted to hearing the bad news. And we feel like if we miss one day, the world's going to end and we're not going to hear about it. What I recommend is you watch the news one day a week. Get your fill one time a week, and the rest of the week, ignore it. You'll be much happier. Before you go to bed at night, if you're going to read something positive. So the last images that you put into your mind are things that will inspire you to change in a positive way, not things that will worry you, and again, keep you awake. These breathing practices will help the way you feel and the way others feel about you. Thank you, and keep breathing.